2 hours later.
Got the club going up on the Tuesday. Got your girl in the cut and she Tuesday. Club going up on the Tuesday. Got your girl in the cut and she.
That's how we do it at Stratton Oakmont.
Stratton Oakmont's parties, as you just saw, is an example of a ceremony within the firm, which shows the culture of the organization. A ceremony is one of a handful of artifacts which symbolize the culture of both the physical and social work environment of an organization. Artifacts are the most visible and accessible level of organizational culture.
Besides ceremonies, other artifacts include personal enactment, symbols, stories, and rituals.
Example of a symbol, you can look at our Stratton Oakmont logo. You can see a lion. That symbolizes boldness, ambitiousness, and hunger.
Personal enactment is when the behavior of the employees and management reflects the values of the organization. An example of personal enactment is the way Belfort passes on his sales pitch to his employees.
You schnooks will now be targeting the wealthiest 1% of Americans. Talking about whales here. Moby fucking dicks. And with this script, which is now your new harpoon, I'm gonna teach each and every one of you to be Captain fucking Ahab. Get it? Huh?
Captain who?
Captain Ahab. From the fucking book. From the book, motherfucker, from the book.
Turn your fucking brain on. Fuck you.
Listen, I remember this one time, a journalist came into our offices wanting to write an article on Stratton Oakmont. She did, it got published, and her story reinforced our aggressive business culture. And you know, the next day we had a line outside of our offices for people wanting to work for me.
An example of a ritual within Stratton Oakmont is Jordan's daily speech that he would give to his sales staff at the beginning of each day. He would use this speech to reinforce the ambitious and sometimes questionable culture of the organization and get his staff motivated for each day.
All of these artifacts are good indicators of the organizational culture at Stratton Oakmont. We can also take a look at the company's strong culture perspective. Stratton Oakmont has a strong culture because there is a consensus among all employees about the company values that is recognizable even to outsiders.
Two characteristics of strong culture that facilitate performance are goal alignment and shared values of all members of the organization.
Goal alignment is where all employees share common objectives. This is evident in Stratton Oakmont because all employees are focused primarily on financial gain, even at the expense of their clients.
Also, there is a high level of motivation in strong cultures because of the values shared by members. Unfortunately, some of the values shared by Stratton Oakmont employees include dishonesty, ambition, wealth, aggression, and achievement.
Jordan Belfort played a large role in shaping and reinforcing culture. The top elements in managing culture include what leaders pay attention to, how leaders react to crises, how leaders behave, how leaders allocate rewards, and how leaders hire and fire employees.
What do I pay attention to? Strictly financials. I mean, maybe women, sex, drugs creeps in every now and then.
One way that leaders manage culture is how they react to crises. When Jordan was offered a settlement with the courts, he ratted out everyone involved in the unethical schemes at Stratton Oakmont. He threw everyone under the bus. This illustrates the backstabbing and in-it-for-yourself culture of the organization.
I wasn't always on my best behavior as a leader, but neither was anyone else at Stratton Oakmont, so who cares?
Leaders also shape culture in the way they allocate rewards to employees. Jordan once offered a female member of his organization a $10,000 bonus to pay for her breast implants in exchange for having her head shaved in front of the entire company. This shows that Jordan was comfortable with offering rewards in ridiculous and outlandish ways.
Stratton Oakmont employees were fired in inappropriate and unprofessional ways. If an employee failed even slightly in doing their duties, they were fired without warning. This contributed to the aggressive organizational culture.
On the day of the initial public offering of Steve Madden's shoes, I needed my salespeople to be on top of their game, but one individual stuck out and was not doing his job. So I had one of my executives go over, he ate his fish, and fired that kid.
Everything had to run tight. It had to be perfect. What the fuck is that kid doing? What's he doing? Biggest IPO in this firm's history. What the fuck is he doing?
Is he wearing a bow tie?
Hi. How you doing?
Good.
You clean the fishbowl? I had a minute and You had a minute? And today you needed to clean the fishbowl today?
I had finished my paperwork and so just had a couple minutes.
Okay. Nice to meet you. A new issue day? A cocksucking motherfucking new issue day! This is what you do! Hey, everybody, listen up! This is what happens when you fuck with your pets on new issue day! Take your little bow tie, get your shit, and get the fuck out of my office, you understand? Get the fuck out!
One of the biggest decisions I ever executed was to start Stratton Oakmont, and it became so successful because I transferred my selling ability into my employees.
Jordan's decision to start his own business was effective because it helped him meet his desired objective of making money and living lavishly. However, Stratton Oakmont's clients were negatively affected by this decision, and they would rule it as unacceptable.
Belfort followed his intuition in his business because he chose money over ethics.
Belfort's decision to start his own business involved little to no risk aversion. This is because his practice was illegal, dangerous, and led to him being monitored by the FBI.
Belfort's cognitive styles reflected the values he considered most important. He valued money the most, so he evaluated his alternatives based on what made his pockets the fattest. He pursued whatever put him and Stratton Oakmont ahead of the competition.
Heuristics are shortcuts in decision-making that save mental activity. An example is the rule of thumb, which can be applied to Belfort when he takes a general approach to problem solving instead of expending too much energy on it.
Another example is Belfort's authority heuristic. People followed Belfort's orders and did what he wanted because he was the CEO, he was the man in charge.
Jordan's level of creativity was extraordinary because Stratton Oakmont was the first major user of the pump and dump scheme, and it caught everyone by surprise, leading them to get away with it for a number of years. Belfort had high energy, which made it easy for his employees to tag along with his unethical practice.
We had Jordan take the power profile assessment test, and he scored high for every kind of power except coercive.
Jordan scored a 7 in reward power, which is the highest score possible. This means that he can frequently use rewards and incentives to get his employees to do things for him. For example, Donnie wants to come work for him just because of how much money he would be able to make.
Jordan only scored a 2 in coercive power, which means that he does not tend to threaten or manipulate his employees. However, he does display a great deal of coercive power when he manipulates his clients.
As far as legitimate power, I scored a 7, which is the highest. This means that it was mutually understood that I had the most authority at Stratton Oakmont because I'm the CEO and founder.
Jordan scored a 6 in referent power, which is also high. This means that a lot of his power came from being respected and admired by his employees. New brokers would frequently mimic Jordan's behaviors and look to him for approval in everything they did.
In expert power, Jordan scored a high of 6.5. His expertise in brokerage comes from him being a broker for his entire career since his days at L.F. Rothschild.
Jordan exhibits a high amount of all three of Corda's symbols of power. He had more free time than anyone in the company and could show up late or take vacations whenever he wanted.
In my office, I had a big desk and a big comfy chair. The rest of the employees had jack and squat. These furnishings exhibit how I had the most power in the office.
Because he dealt directly with company CEOs while doing initial public offerings, and because he lived in the richest neighborhood in all of New York, Jordan had access to countless people with financial power on Wall Street.
Jordan's zone of indifference was based on how well his employees followed his instructions automatically. He expanded his zone of indifference when he told his secretary to send his wife flowers without giving her a reason.
Overall, Jordan did not use his power successfully because he only fulfills one out of the 4 requirements of successful power use.
Jordan didn't have a high belief in the authority system, but he was able to manipulate it by hiring former SEC members to help do his dirty work.
It is clear that Jordan did not believe in justice because he tricked his clients into believing that they were profiting from the stocks that they bought through Stratton Oakmont.
At Stratton Oakmont, we had plenty of hard work and discipline. I told the newcomers to smile and dial. If you did that a few hundred times a day, you'd make your riches quickly.
Jordan did not show a high level of altruism while he was at Stratton Oakmont. He amassed a great deal of wealth and stayed at the company even though he knew he had enough to retire.
Among his clients, Jordan's use of power was completely unethical. However, he usually liked his employees and treated them relatively ethically, at least while he was still at the height of his power.
His employees experienced a good outcome because they became wealthy if they did their jobs. They were respected because they were allowed to party with their boss, and they were treated fairly because Jordan gave everyone a chance who wanted to work at Stratton.
In contrast, his clients did not have a good outcome because their stock was worth less than they thought it was. They weren't respected but manipulated because they were very willing to buy stock from Stratton, and they weren't treated fairly but were just used to make a profit.
I didn't really care much about sexual harassment. Whatever happens, happens. Me and employees would often get sexual favors from female employees in our office throughout the workday.
Politics were openly encouraged at Stratton Oakmont, especially by management. Jordan violated the official company code by encouraging women to wear short skirts and low-cut tops at the office.
Stratton Oakmont was valued at an estimated $400 million in its prime. I, personally, owned 50% of the firm, which is $200 million.
The driving force behind the success of Stratton Oakmont was its sales force. The performance of this sales force was imperative to the success of the company, which explains the average compensation for a first-year employee being around $250,000.
After the first year, each individual was expected to roughly double their sales, leading to a second-year income of about $500,000. This is an example of intrinsic compensation, which was typical at Stratton Oakmont in dealing with positive consequences.
Since Stratton Oakmont was a private firm, it is difficult to find any other information in regards to the financials of the firm.
These positive and negative consequences created a task-specific self-efficacy to achieve the goals which Belfort put forth.